All right. Welcome, guys. Season 3 of the Hawk Vision Podcast. I'm your host, Chuck Hawkins, here to help you shorten the learning curve on your way to greatness. Over 100 interviews of successful entrepreneurs and thought leaders have graced this show so that we can help you understand the process of chasing and achieving dreams and greatness and what that's going to look like. Make sure you like, share, subscribe across all your social media platforms, especially here at YouTube. More importantly, share this podcast with other visionaries just like you. Now, I want to jump right in because the guest that we have today is someone that I have been watching grow online for years. I've watched her grow as an entrepreneur, as a speaker, a writer, a woman, a business owner, and thousands of followers later. I am so proud to say that she's finally a guest here on the show, a business coach that teaches women all over the world how to monetize their story and create additional streams of income. Absolute powerhouse, is someone I have tons of respect for. Miss Maya K, welcome to the show.
Oh my goodness, what an introduction. Thank you so much, Chuck. It's an honor to be here. Just an honor to finally be connected face to face. Meeting virtually is very interesting.
Yeah.
And if there's one thing I can say to anyone is serving is the key. I offered to do a free bio for Chuck back in 2012, 13. It was one of them. I was in Korea and he allowed me to do his media kit for him and rewrite his bio. I think I actually had just did it from scratch. I can't remember. I ain't trying to take all the credit. But when you serve and you offer to do things, that's the problem with the new generation. You have to serve your way up sometimes. So I just want to throw that gem in there just to start.
Listen, the funny part is when you were just talking about that story, it just brought back so many memories. A lot of people think that social media has shined a light on people that have, been able to make it quick, right? Or at least put the appearance out there that they've made it really quick. And truth be told, this entrepreneurship thing is a grind. And we both started years ago. And now we get to sit back and look at the success, the different relationships. And now we're on the same stage.
Right. Let's go. Come on, let's do this. I'm excited. Let's go.
Let's jump in. So we got to do the obligatory obligatory question, get it out the way. What got you on track to be quote unquote an entrepreneur?
Honestly, I saw my mother selling Avon since I was 2 years old. And it was so crazy because I didn't even know how to correlate entrepreneurship with what she was doing until I got older. And in middle school, Avon had started acting real funny and they started requiring them to do taxes, which is weird because most people would think it was like that the whole time.
Right.
But she ended up having to give them $600, which wasn't bad because she was killing it.
Yeah.
And then that's when it dawned on me. I said, oh, this is like being an entrepreneur. And my mother worked at Verizon when it was Bell South. She was down with Verizon.
Wow. Okay.
And so I was able to correlate that she was doing something that was like building a business, because it is like your own business with Avon.
Absolutely.
And I even went to school and was selling some of her stuff. And I remember writing down the taxes. My friends, I was really good at math. My friends didn't understand how did it come to that? I'm like, because you got to add tax. And it was so crazy because I'm like, yo, Maya, you're really good at this. So I got bit by the bug, I would say, in middle school. And then slowly but surely, I've realized that I had this knack for building things.
Yes.
One of my favorite passages in scripture is Proverbs 24, 4-6. And that's actually the theme, the scripture over my business. I feel like all entrepreneurs, especially if you're a Christian entrepreneur, nonetheless, you should have a scripture over your business. And it talks about, in summary, that skilled people, they build businesses, communities, and they build other people.
Okay.
And so for me, I had this knack for building people, building things. And I just realized it would just continue to grow. And so I was working at the age of 12. I was making $4 an hour, pasting stickers on the back of Avon books, believe it or not, but not for my mother at an Avon office.
Right.
And I would walk there after school. And so I just think seeing there were women around me who were doing business, and I got bit really early. And I just realized, okay, if I'm going to do this, I want to make sure that I'm doing it in a way that makes sure that I'm changing the trajectory of my bloodline.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to just do it just because because even then, kind of building your business was a little popular, not as popular as now, but when I started at like 25, 26, it was a big thing. And so that's kind of how I got into it. It just, something bit me at a young age. I was able to see my mother doing it. And then as I got older, I realized that there was something in it where God wasn't calling me to just till the land, but like to build the land. Does that mean?
It makes sense. It makes sense. You know, one of the things that's funny to me is that the word right now, I feel like the word entrepreneur has lost value.
Yeah.
And I feel like the word has lost value because we hear this word. When we used to hear the word, we would think of people like who's the guy? Tim Cook. Not Tim Cook. Who started Apple? Before Tim Cook.
Oh, Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs.
Okay.
We would think of people like Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, you know, people that have built these huge companies, family names, right?
Yeah.
Charles Schwab, Christian Dior. These are family names.
Bezos, right?
Jeff Bezos, exactly. Yep. And now the word is just thrown out there the same way that we say we love everything. Yeah. I am a person that I enjoy the value of words, and we're going to get into, you know, writing books and stories later. I enjoy the value of words. When you hear the word entrepreneur, what does it mean to
you? That's so interesting. Oh, wow. I think entrepreneur means crazy, if you ask me, but no.
Facts. You got to be a little off to want to do this. Yes.
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 I think entrepreneur to me means anointing. And I know that sounds really heavy. And I am a Christian, so I'm probably going to use a lot of spiritual correlation. But the thing with that, though, is that it really can go with anything. You can look up the definition of anointing. You know what I mean? It's not like it's just biblical. Sure. But I say that because when you're an entrepreneur, right, it takes a lot to really build and to start something from scratch. And when you didn't have, like, I'm not sure about you, Chuck, but growing up in North Philly, I didn't have examples outside of my mom.
Right.
And it was really rough. And so when I did finally run into examples, whether it was online or in person, the one thing that stuck out to me is that each of these individuals were anointed for what they were doing. And they were good at what they were doing in the lane that they were in. And so that's what it means to me. The second thing I would say is it also means leadership if you do it right. And I just released a newsletter. My newsletter comes out every Wednesday. And I just released a newsletter 2 weeks ago on the difference between being an entrepreneur and a leader. My pastor is actually out in LA, Pastor Teray Roberts.
Okay.
And Pastor Sarah Jakes Roberts, that's my first lady. And he had a leaders conference the weekend of the 18th of February. And blew our minds. Like, I was there virtually. And I mean, when I say it was powerful, and so it inspired me. He didn't say anything that I said in my newsletter, but it inspired me to say, wow, he just taught us about leadership in business. What is the real difference between entrepreneurship and leadership? And then I said, if you're really like a real entrepreneur and you understand that you want to leave a true mark, you are a leader first. So that's what it means.
And I think a lot of people miss that, because if you ask most people what their biggest struggle is in entrepreneurship, they may say money, they may say following, they may say all these things that if we dive in, it drills down to actually discipline, right? Yeah. And so I agree. I think leadership is a discipline that you have to create within yourself, because nobody's going to, when you're starting, you know, unless you have employees, nobody's going to do the marketing for you. Nobody's going to do the business plan for you. Nobody is going to do the posting nowadays for you. Nobody's going to sell for you, right? Yep. And so you have to create all of these disciplines for yourself to a point where they become second nature. And it's hard to create a new habit when the new habit doesn't give you the results that some other habits will give you, right? So if you talk about smoking, you feel that habit instantly and you love it. You talk about sex, you feel that habit instantly and you love it, right? And so when you're in entrepreneurship, you have to delay the gratification.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we've been watching this, you know, like you said, since 2012, 2013. And, you know, some people pop faster, but now we're starting to reap these rewards. You know, my wife recently just, it's hilarious. I just finally gave in and said, okay, you can have a housekeeper. Like, okay, fine. When the first time they came, I swear to God, I was like, I am an idiot. Why did I not do this before? Like I am an idiot. I don't know what it was that made me not want to do this, but I think it's, like you said, we have a hard time celebrating success for ourselves because we're always looking at the next hurdle.
Yeah.
That being said, you have been a writer, an inventor, business coach, a speaker, like you've been everything for your business. What aspect of business do you get the most joy from? And you guys, real quick, when I say inventor, she used to have a shoe business before Money Yachty and Master P was a thing. Like she was creating shoes. So okay, that's why I said inventor. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's so funny. And I'm gonna do it again, when God allows me, because that was a big deal for me. Especially the name Bricks. I mean, come on, and can't nobody take it. I'm about to trademark it, so don't even worry. But that was the name of the shoe line. And
Yes.
I think the biggest thing that gives me joy is speaking and writing. I don't know if I can have two answers, but speaking and writing.
Sure.
Mainly because speaking, like moments like this, it allows me to pour. It allows me to pour into others and pour into the next generation. It allows me to pour into other leaders and other business people, and that's a big deal for me. And whether it's on a stage or we're getting back to the stages, but most of it is virtual.
Yes.
And then my podcast and others' podcasts, that's a big deal for me to be able, you know what? I'm real offended by this little Cowboys mug.
I knew that was gonna come up.
I don't even like football. That's just so crazy.
Listen, guys,
Okay,
if you guys are just listening right now and you're not watching YouTube, she's from Philly.
Okay.
I am a Cowboys fan. Yeah. Let me just say this. Please allow me to have my own abusive relationship. Right? I'm not even gonna go back and forth right now.
You're cool. What's so funny is I'm not even a football fan. It's just
I just know y'all hate us. I know.
Yeah, it's just so funny. But yeah. So side note, y'all. See, this is relationship, though, right? Yes. This is relationship. This isn't a business podcast where somebody interview you don't know them, right?
Exactly.
Very, very much like a down to earth, a colleague relationship.
Yeah.
But yeah, speaking even on my podcast and on others, it just allows me to pour. And then of course with writing, that's my pride and joy.
Yes.
It's an interesting journey. I was in school to be a pediatrician and God was like, no, and switched my major to journalism. And then ended up just following that path and got a master's in creative writing. And then I was like, God, what am I doing now? But what I realized is that I have this very unique way of touching people's soul, not even their heart, their soul with my words, whether it be romance, whether it be young adult, whether it be a blog post. And that's a big deal to me because words are forever around.
Yes. I couldn't agree. I remember when I was younger, my father used to tell me that a woman will always tell you exactly what she wants. You just have to study it and put the words together to make her know that you're it. And from that point on, like I was writing poetry in like the 6th grade. I would say anything with the stereo before that ever came up.
Funny.
And I love writing. I myself have had a book that I've been writing for I don't know how many years. That's not the point. My question will be, I'm finding myself wanting to get away from. Let me ask you this way. As a literary coach, you've been able to help people craft their personal stories and be able to create income from them. You mentioned that you have a special skill. We've talked about anointing. How is it that you're able to take someone's story and help them learn how to monetize it?
Here's the thing. I tell entrepreneurs all the time, or even if you don't necessarily have a business, maybe the book is your business, right? But my whole thought process is when I help women launch their businesses, people don't realize it takes time to get that first client or to sell that first product. Okay. And so in the meantime, you need a book that shows your expertise or your story, tells your story so that you can bring in some type of income while you're waiting for the business to grow instead of being stressed. Because see, it's easier for people to buy into a $10, $15, usually $15 book than it is maybe for a $2,000 coaching program.
Thanks.
And so
Yes.
that's why I tell them to do that. And the way I'm able to do that is because me being a life coach as well, like being certified, which doesn't matter. I just want to be clear. If you want to be a life coach, you can do it. You don't have to have a certification.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But being a life coach, a goal coach, and then having this expertise in literature and fusing them together, I'm able to get to one, the root of why someone is scared to even write their story. And so that's a big deal because that's a lot, it has a lot to do with whether it's emotional baggage. We're not therapists, but we are able to still maybe get into some of that mental blockage, like what could be blocking you. And so because I care about the whole person and I'm able to kind of tap into the different layers of the person writing the story, that's how I'm able to help them, at least get it down on paper. So that's the first part.
Yeah.
And most people, it's just that they don't even realize they have a story that's enough for a book. They think that their story may not mean anything, but a book is not always this 80,000 word book. Like that's like that's like different. But if you could just have 100-page book on your website or so forth. Then when it comes to creating like streams, I tell people all the time, what does a book do? You're not just selling the book, you're selling you. So now, not only are you making sales off the book, but you're making sales off of a possible speaking engagements. You get booked when you have a book. And that's like the
Let's
truth.
go.
Like
That's a bar. Say that one more time.
you get booked when you have a book. And so that's where you can also achieve your 4 and 5 figures if people aren't buying into your 4-figure program. So I really encourage women to tap into that instead of being so concerned with like, let me get on social media, let me market, which we talked about that too, that tweet. But
yes.
it's okay to do that, but you don't want to lose yourself. And so that's the other thing. Writing a book, it helps you not lose yourself because you want to make sure you show up as the person you're presenting to them, to your audience. You want to show up. So that's kind of how I do it. It's just a matter of getting down to the nitty gritty of why they might feel stuck in either launching their business or writing a book, making sure we get it down on paper, clearing out those barriers that keeps them from actually accomplishing the goal, and then making sure that we pull out what's important. Your audience don't need to know your whole life story, but there's something in your story that they need to know that's tied to your business. So we're not even it's not about a memoir. It's about what's tied to your business that we can monetize off of now. And people, you can monetize off your story.
Yeah. I think there's what I've seen, again, I don't want to assume that I am, the end all be all expert. Although I'm really good. But what I've seen is that people have, even myself, we struggle with the clarity about the message from our book, right? So you take somebody that has maybe 3 or 4 seminal life experiences, and maybe they've been a mom and they want to talk about that. Maybe they've been corporate HR and they want to talk about that. Maybe they've been a wife as well and they want to talk about that. And then figuring out which one to write the book about or how to tie them all together, they lose clarity and now the book never happens. Do you run into that as well?
Yes. And see, here's the problem with it. So a mom who wants to talk about a mom. So the young lady that the Lord led me to do, I did the Daniel fast in January and I partnered with this young lady I was following on Instagram. We were following each other. Didn't even know that her business basically is helping single moms go from corporate to entrepreneurship and with a plan.
Nice. Okay.
So not like you just leaving your job, and you got, because if you're a single mom, you got kids, and
exactly.
she has twins. Yeah. And so it was so amazing to hear her we were praying over her business and vice versa. And so her writing a book about being a single mom, it makes sense because her audience is single moms and they want to hear her story. But what I did, I'll give you an example. So when I helped Andrea Mayberry, the mother of Yaz from Empire,
when I took question number 9 off the table. Let's go. We good. Now I'm playing.
Okay. But what was you going to ask? What was the question?
I was going to ask about that process because that's my show. Well, it used to be my show.
Yeah, when it was going. Yeah. So writing that. So we're all from Philly, just for clarity. Yaz is from Philly. Andrea is from Philly. I'm from Philly. And so, for example, that book it was called Before Empire. It was about his journey having ADHD and struggling with like his disorder and how she was able to help him become who he is, right? That was the focus. It wasn't like focused so much on her. as much as it was like, well, it was in a way. Let me explain how that works. So it was twofold, because there's a lot of moms out there who are trying to get their children into show business. So I love that we married the two. How to kind of help your child grow up into show business, because it was two parts to the book. And then also, if your child has a disability, how to help them.
Yes.
So that process was basically, she knew that that's what she wanted to write about. And we were able to, what I did, and this is what I do in helping people with the book coaching part, is I came up with questions. We came up with literally, I think it was 15 like chapter titles. And then I came up with like 10 questions for each chapter. And then we would go through those questions and record. But see, my questions weren't just like random questions based on that chapter subject.
Sure.
They each tied into the next question. Yeah. And I didn't even realize it until she was answering them, that's what we had done the first couple chapters. So I said, well, let me keep this up, because that way, when I go to, I don't do ghostwriting anymore, but when I
she's
go
like, I'm over that.
Yeah, that I'm done. But when I go to put it together, because of the way the questions are, it made it flow. And so the key to you doing that, for who, all the listeners out there, is not about you. Again, you're not telling your audience like all of these different areas of your life. You have to find out what they want. That's where market research and data comes in. So you already know what they want, because you launched a business based on that, right? So now find out what in your life answers that same question. And then you write based off of that. And so in book coaching, I do help you come up with the questions so that you can write. I just don't, like I said, do the writing part anymore.
Don't do the writing anymore.
Right. So I get it. It could be a lot, but you find clarity because you already have clarity with your target audience.
Yeah, that's strong. I think a lot of people take on the thought of writing a book, and they get so excited about the process of writing a book and putting author behind their name that they forget that they need to have some clarity. And then other people, again, will get frozen because the clarity is there. And now they're like, oh my God, is it going to be good enough to sell? And I believe that nobody knows if it's good if you don't write it. Right.
That's it. And I think the key is to also put business in front of that, right? So you're not writing a book, you're writing a business book. Like in terms of entrepreneurs, I'm talking about for what I do, coaching entrepreneurs to write a business book, a book for their business. Now, again, if you want to just write a story and you're an entrepreneur and you just maybe you want to write your memoir, that's okay. Memoirs are very hard to sell. You got to have something in it that makes people want to buy it. But I'm just saying, from the perspective of being a book and business coach, it's a business book. So when you keep that in your mindset, you're not so much thinking about the time you were 5 years old and you fell off your bike and like broke your arm, right? You're like that's not going to sell anything unless you're selling like cash. You're selling cash. That's your product. Then you can talk about how you were in love with cash since you were 5. But that's important. I just wanted to throw that in there. Like, if you keep business in front of it as an entrepreneur, then you understand that you're writing a book for your business, not for your life.
Got you. Right now, we're at the height of the entrepreneurship culture. And I don't advise anyone to quit their day jobs. I think everybody should learn really, really early on. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, let your day job fund that process. But what would you say is the hardest part about entrepreneurship that you wish more people would speak on?
The depression.
Let's go.
I think depression is, especially if you're a creative. So I'm a creative at heart. And being a creative, I think most creatives already have a hypersensitivity to depression. And then you add to that entrepreneurship, you're talking about the possibility of needing an on-call therapist, And so I really wish, that more entrepreneurs will be raw and honest. Now, I am proud of the Black community for speaking up more about mental health. No more what goes on in this house stays in this house. I am proud of the fact that we are growing and evolving that way, right? But the challenge is, I don't think enough entrepreneurs and artists discuss the layers of mental anguish that comes with this journey throughout the different seasons of building, launching your business. And even when success hits, it was something for me to hear my first lady, Sarah Jakes Roberts, say that she was depressed after becoming a New York Times bestseller with her book, Woman of All.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. So I do
Absolutely.
wish that more entrepreneurs would be honest about depression. And what I'd say about it is not unusual, whether you're reaching peaks of success or you're failing, to have bouts of depression.
Yeah.
It is not unusual for you to feel like there is like an overwhelming feeling coming over you, even though you feel like you should be happy, right? Especially if you just had a victory.
Yes.
One, entrepreneurship is very lonely. It is a
Ooh.
very lonely journey. Okay.
Yes.
And it's not just
Yes.
because everybody may not get your vision. You might have 10 people that get your vision. You might have a little mastermind group. Okay. That's not what it is. But when it's all said and done, when that 1 hour, like say you meet with like-minded people, once a week for 2 hours and y'all just like
Right.
encourage each other, that's great. But when them lights go off, when them bills pile up, because see, there's a season when that takes place. And this is for those of us who maybe we left a job or maybe we didn't have one.
Yes.
You had some people who lost their jobs during the pandemic, so they started to work on that thing they had put to the side, and they're
Yeah.
still struggling. So it's not always that somebody left their job prematurely. Sometimes the job left them. And so
Yeah.
when them bills pile up, when the mortgage is backed up, the rent is backed up, the car is repoed, and you're trying hard and you're doing what you were called to do, that can lead to some really, really intense depression. And I
Absolutely.
think you have to have enough wisdom to know when you put in enough work. I'm not talking about you expecting something to happen overnight,
Yes, very
but
much.
it's possible to look back over at least, I would say after a year. You should be reevaluating every quarter, but after a year, you should be like, hold up, I'm still broke, I'm still struggling. What did I miss? Or do I need to go back? And sometimes going back is not full time, it's part time.
Yeah.
So yeah, the depression part is so important.
I think to add to that, because I wholeheartedly agree, I think it's also important to know when to log off,
Yeah.
right? Because entrepreneurship culture, entrepreneurship Twitter, entrepreneurship social media, whatever it is, can pull you in so many directions,
Yep.
right? It can have you thinking, oh, I got to focus on my business credit. Oh, I got to focus on this. Oh, I got to do that. And if I don't run no ads, then and the whole time, all of these things are pulling you away from the simple structure that you need to build,
Yeah.
right? The connections personally that you need to make so that your business can thrive. You get pulled in so many directions that you lose focus. I think it's important to know what that feeling is so that you can recognize it and log off,
Yeah,
right? So that you can
absolutely.
dive back in. I think I've told several people this. There are times when I will completely shut down social media and I'll start talking about some of the most random stuff just to break up the monotony
Yeah.
on my timeline, right? Like you
Yeah.
saw me the other day. I was like, you know what? I'm sick of y'all. I don't want to hear nobody else talk about nothing, especially these gas prices. If you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you'd be able to afford it. Like, I don't want to hear
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's a shortage out there, a labor shortage. You can
Yeah.
afford the gas price and get another job, whatever.
Yeah, like let's talk about something else. So, but I do agree. I think that entrepreneurship is an extremely lonely journey, and obviously it is so by name, right? Entrepreneur is called, it's not called groupapreneur. Um,
Right.
but I think that a lot of people need to be more aware of, and that's why I do this show. Is what are you feeling while you're going through,
Yeah.
right? Because it's one thing to be able to talk about just the success and the systems and all those things, but um, I fully believe that everybody experiences the same thought processes, the
Hmm.
same feelings during entrepreneurship, and they need to understand that they're not alone. So
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
couldn't agree
Absolutely.
more. How long did it take for you to get comfortable with being an advocate for yourself, telling people, hey, I'm Maya, I'm in business, I'm out here. What do you have for me to do? Or I want to do this with you. Like, how long did it take for you to get there?
You know what? Honestly, one of the things that scares me the most is I'm confident. And no, it just
Okay.
blows my mind sometimes. And I think as a kid, I'll never forget. I was with my cousin. She was a teacher, and I went to school with her. I would go with her sometimes when my school wasn't open. And
Sure.
so I never forget this guy. It was an African guy, and he was talking to her, and I was telling him I wanted to do business. And he, of course, respectfully, culturally, sometimes African men can't see women doing business. And so he
Yeah.
started to try to like discourage me. And I'm like this kid, and I'm like, hold up, sir. No, no, that's not happening. Like, I'm going to be in business one day.
Yes.
Um, and so I think that I learned how to advocate for myself as a kid, because I felt like I wasn't advocated for as a kid. And so that caused me, whether it was trauma that wasn't addressed, because I'm like, I told you what happened, where were you, type of thing. So whether it was because of the trauma that wasn't addressed, or like, me getting into it at school, and like my friends would have their mamas and aunties coming up to fight everybody, and I didn't have that. Now what's crazy is it probably was good because my family is crazy. But I felt like in some ways as a kid, I wasn't advocated for a lot. And so I think I started advocating for myself. Like I'm not justifying this, but I was like, I would go toe to toe with my teachers and then call my mom before they did. I just want you to know you're going to get a call, because I was definitely arguing with the teacher. Okay.
Yeah.
Especially in high school, because we had access to the payphone, and so I think that's when it really started. But as I got older, like when I think about business, I was scared to not survive Philadelphia. And that made me advocate for myself as well. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it to 18 with the way things are in this city. So I'm gonna scream loud that I am this or I am that. And then of course in my 20s at Temple, I learned how to advocate for myself. I think it just comes from my upbringing though, because I don't want to make it seem like I didn't have support. My mother was super supportive. She put me in everything, but I think it started as a child and then it just evolved the older I got. Some people, the older they get, maybe their confidence decreases a little bit, because as children, we all have personalities that are like fun and
absolutely. Yes.
But I think for me, my city had a lot to do with that. I think coming from such a rough city made me say, like, I'm going to advocate for myself. I'm not going to be a stereotype. I'm not going to be, a statistic. And I'm just going to keep speaking up for myself. And then lastly, I think as I got to the first business that I launched, I think it made me, by then I was so confident in who I was, and probably a little cocky, which is why, God will humble you out and you'll work through, I mean,
absolutely. I know.
I think we know, like in our 20s, we start getting a little like some of the Gen Zs right now, very cocky. So
can't tell them nothing.
They'll get broke down. They'll get broke down.
Yeah. Real life got hands.
Yeah, it got right. I like that, like real hands. And so I think with my first business, because of all of those seeds that were sown into my confidence, because that's one thing my mother did give me was the, encouragement. I think that's what really helped me to advocate for myself. So I think from the first business on, I was always advocating for myself. Even with celebrities or well-known people who wanted me to think I needed to do something for free because of who you are. No, that's not happening. I've lost professional relationships for that. Like, I'm not the one.
I love it. There's I think, we hear a lot about the types of fear. And so it sounds like, fear of loss and fear of success, right? Those are two. It sounds like fear of failure kind of was a motivating factor for you.
Absolutely. I mean, to this day, which is why I'm having my youth conference. Oh, I'd love to talk about that too, but if
we got you.
But my youth conference in Philadelphia in September, that's why it's so important for me, because it hurts my heart to this day to hear kids say, I survived Philadelphia. Like, what does that mean? Yeah. But it's painful because it's true. And so, absolutely, like the fear of failure, getting stuck in the city, not being who I was called to be, getting pregnant, having children, which I actually did have an ectopic pregnancy at 18, 19.
Wow.
Yeah, I lost one of my tubes, but what I'm grateful for is that, it may sound a little mean, but losing it was a divine blessing, because I would not have had the experiences I had, but I still wasn't a stereotype. Like, I was afraid of the whole, like, becoming a baby mama, not a wife, having 3 and 4 kids by different men.
Yeah.
And so, fear of failure definitely motivated that guy to me.
It's a thing. It's a thing. And and it could go either way. And I think that you have to be honest to identify which fear. Everybody has one, right? Fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of success. Everybody has one. You have to be honest with yourself so that you know which one you are dealing with, so that you can find the resources. I think one of the greatest books that I've ever read that alluded to that is Understanding Your Potential by Miles Monroe, the late, great Miles Monroe. Absolutely love Miles Monroe. Yes. And when I read Understanding Your Potential, my thing was fear of success, right? Because once you're successful, you have to now maintain that. right? And so a lot of people are scared of failure. I'm okay with failure because of where I came from, right? I understand failure. I get it, right? Most people are going to fail at some point. So that's part of the game. But maintaining success to me, early on is so much harder, because if you're up here and you fall, it's a long way back. Like if you're here and you fall, okay, cool. If you was, $10,000 in the bank and that's all you had, you lose 8,000. Okay. And not to disrespect $10,000, but if you lose that, that's different than losing 3 homes. You know what I mean? 2 cars, being like those, it's a different fall. And so for me, fear of success was the most crippling thing that I've ever dealt with. And then my mentor told me, he said, the best part about failure at a high level is that you can do it again. Failure at a high level, he says, failure at a high level means 1 or 2 things went wrong. He said, failure at a low level could be anything. Failure at a high level is 1 or 2 things went wrong. You can do it again. That changed my game.
That's really good. That's good.
So let me ask you this. At any level of success as a business coach, you have to be a student of the game in order to still be seen as an authority figure. When did you learn that you had to continue studying the industry so that you could, separate yourself from those that would seek out your services?
It's funny because talking about that conference I mentioned, the Call Leaders Conference, Pastor Terray said something so powerful. He said the hardest thing to do is to become a student when you've been a master.
Ooh, let's go.
And I
like that one.
Yeah, he was like, it's the hardest thing. And it blessed me because it made me think about even pivoting into being a business coach. Like I didn't really want to be in this lane because it was all oversaturated. Everybody their mama a coach,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think for me, what made me realize that I had to continue to be a student and to learn is understanding that, now this is going back to spirituality, because this is something important that I really want people to understand.
Yes.
God is a God who is about progress and creation. He spoke and creation happened, right? And so if we understand that, then we understand that there's always something to be learning and something to be doing. So when you get a God idea, you can't possibly think that God idea in this season is going to work with the formula that God gave you for the previous season, right? So in order for you to be able to implement that God idea, then you have to be open to the fact that there's going to be something new you have to learn. And so whatever that would look like, for instance, I started a small community that starts this Wednesday, the 16th, called Creatives for Christ.
Okay.
And I wanted to kind of start like a small community group for creatives who maybe grew up like I did, where they told you going to Hollywood was hell. That's the sin day. You don't do that. You're a Christian. You ain't supposed to be Hollywood. So I wanted to create a safe co-ed space for us to meet just 15 people where we can meet virtually by month, twice a month, and to like encourage each other first with the word, and then break out groups to see how we can help each other with resources. What you working on?
Yes.
But I say that to say, when God gave me that idea last June, I started to implement it right away. And he said, no, because there's things you need to learn. So I backed off. Mm-hmm. Now, I had a TV pilot circulating in Hollywood that I guess is still circulating. I think there's a pause. No, I think there's a pause on it. Okay. That's the business.
Fair enough. Absolutely. Especially given the last couple of years. Yeah.
Yes. And so I said, all right, cool. But what I did in that time, I read this book called Call to Create. I read this devotional that talked about Mr. Rogers. A lot of people don't know Mr. Rogers was a Christian, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Okay.
I started reading like books on creation, and now it's crazy. I couldn't get nobody to sign up in June, so I had left it alone. Do you know, within 2 days, I had all 15 signups?
Wow.
Now, because see, the formula that I was using was what I had learned previously about how to write books and all of that. And God was like, you're on another trajectory now, because I've assigned you to this mountain of Hollywood. For those who don't understand the 7 mountains of influence, listen, I got the book right here.
Let's go.
Okay.
This is why you guys should be on the YouTube channel, because now she's showing it.
Yes.
And if you're on Spotify, you can't see it, but go ahead.
The 7 Mountain Prophecy by Johnny Inglow. It's really important to know what mountain you're assigned to. But I say all of that to say, now, because I had learned stuff, so from June all the way up until like now that it's launching, I was studying and reading and becoming a student of a craft. My craft, again, regardless of the fact that I have written 15 books, regardless of the fact that I have written like 12 scripts, including the one that's out there, it was important for me to still go back and learn the mechanics of creation and why we're called to create. So
wow, there's so much there. One of the things that stood out to me is you said, you alluded to God as a God of creation and you have to do something. My father used to tell me that no miracle in the Bible ever happens without someone doing something, right? And so I would always, forever, still do. I don't know if this is good or bad, but I get caught up in doing the work, right? I am so caught up in um, pouring into myself and reading and doing the personal growth. Like I get annoyed if I'm away from personal growth too long. Like people actually, like, you would swear I'm antisocial and I'm not. I'm just, if it ain't growth, it's right. How long did it take for you to, not how long, when did you start to understand the importance of personal growth?
When my trauma started to dictate my success. And that was like a problem, right? Because it's like, okay, you got this trauma you're dealing with, whether it's being touched, whether it's abuse growing up, whatever it is, right?
Yes.
And what I realized was that I had forgiven what had happened. I mean, she was a 12-year-old girl, she was a kid herself, right? But what happened was, and this was in 2020 when the Lord, and I was actually doing personal growth before that, but it's something different. I'm telling you, you can have personal growth, but if you don't have the mental healing with it, it's like honestly not gonna work. So I remember in 2020, I had a literary agent. And then finally we split, like we just went our separate ways because they was like getting on my nerves. Like I was like, I done submitted 5 drafts of this book. What do you want from me? Right. And so finally, after they threatened, like, well, if you don't get this draft right, we're gonna separate. I said, no, we're done. We're done. And so with that, I had a breakdown, and God was like, you need to sign up for therapy now. And so I'm thinking in therapy, we're going to talk about like the career shift and, the pandemic and things, because I was an essential worker during the pandemic. But what God revealed, our first session was about my daddy issues. Cool. But then after that, like that whole week, I'm crying myself to sleep, because healing doesn't just happen when you're in the therapy room. It happens on your own time.
Right.
And I'm like crying. God is like, yeah, you're still dealing with that scar. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you're still dealing with that scar because you forgave the assailant, but you didn't heal the wound. So I say that to say what happened prior up until then. I think at that point, it was 12 or 13 books. So I was proud of the success I had, but my trauma was dictating that success, because now I need to outrun my trauma, right? I need to get over this hurdle. I need to hurry up and implement something so all of that can be erased. I need to hurry up and get my next book and my next book deal so that I can erase the trauma, or at least hide it and bury it. So when your trauma starts to dictate your success, you have to really take a step back and be like, no. I need to work on my mental health, personal development, all that personal growth, because I mean, it was scary. Now, I'm not saying it started in 2020. I would say the mental health journey elevated in 2020, but the personal growth part, I want to say it really, I think when I was in Korea, because let me tell you, when you living in another country and they don't even speak your language,
and you're looking different.
And you look different, but people telling you the same thing you heard in America, that you got a nasty attitude. That's when you got to shape yourself. Yeah, I was getting into it with them Koreans, like, what, And so while they didn't verbally say that, there was a few co-teachers from America that we had got into it. But my Korean co-teacher, in a way, I could tell she kind of felt like I was kind of aggressive, right? And I'm like, man, this is kind of scary, because I'm in another country dealing with the same issues. And so that was 27, 28. That's when the personal development journey started. And and again, my trauma was dictating my success, because even that, I was happy to have gotten the opportunity. But my trauma of growing up in a household with angry Black women, because they were bitter and angry from their ancestors and all the things that happened in the bloodline.
Yeah.
Now I'm up here taking that into another country and a divine opportunity that the average person from my neighborhood would
We'll
never
never
get.
see. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
I love the insight that it takes to realize that you're dealing with something that you're in another country dealing with something that's happening here. Most people will never have that type of self-reflection. That it will forever be somebody's fault. It will forever be they just tripping. It will forever be that they have haters. And I tell anybody that asks me, because I don't even like the subject, broke people don't have haters, right? Broke people do not have haters. Unsuccessful people do not have haters. If you are in the same tax bracket that you have been in the last 5 years, you don't have haters. You have a you problem. And I think that it's extremely powerful that you were even aware to take a look at that. Getting close to wrapping up, I definitely want to respect your time. We talked a lot about investing in yourself, and I think a lot of people are starting to understand business, right? There's these courses all over. There's no shortage of an online course that you could take to understand business. What I am finding over 100 plus interviews, all of the successful people that I've been fortunate enough to have on the show, we are not teaching people skills. And so you just alluded to that with the self-improvement. How was it to identify or to recognize that your people skills will directly impact your business success?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it kind of goes back to what I meant about like being a leader, right? Because true leaders understand that they're servants of people, right?
Yes.
And so when you are serving people, you understand that you have to see people essentially the way God sees them. Again, this is regardless of your religious beliefs, right?
Absolutely.
Like Jesus was always about people, humanity. And so I understood that when I had a business right after coming back from Korea, my first writing business, and I had promoted it. And you know how you get these random marketing calls?
Yes.
And I was so pissed off because I wasn't getting any sales. And so I was wrong. I'm just gonna be honest before I even tell y'all the story. I was wrong. But
okay.
She kind of annoyed me because she called to try to do a marketing sale and hung up on me. And I was like, well, what was that for? So I called back because I knew based on what she had said, she had found, I guess, my advertisement on Yelp or something like that. And so I'm like, okay, well, what's up? So I asked to speak to her manager, and she was like, there is no manager. And so I got an attitude. I called her a B. I did. And I hung up the phone. The North Philly came out real quick. I was pissed off. Okay, because she called me and she hung up on me. She called me and she hung up on me, like, because you mad because I don't want to buy what you're selling.
Absolutely.
So she ends up writing this review and giving me 1 star. And it's attached to, at the time, my business, Right Touch Consulting. I can't delete it. I can't do anything. And that was the moment that it really hit me that like your people skills have to be on 100 even when theirs aren't, right? Yes. So even when they acting crazy, they treating you crazy, being rude to you, your people skills have to be on 100, and you have to always be honoring people. It's funny you said that a lot of business coaches and entrepreneurs aren't teaching people skills, but I don't know if that's true for me, only because only because I will tell them how I will ask that as a part of, I have this thing called the Girls Anthem Starter Kit that they get when they book a package. And it has things in there, certain questions. And then when we go through it during the first session, I ask that question, like, how do you treat yourself? And when they tell me how they treat themselves, I say that's exactly how you treat people. Because we can't treat people any better than we treat ourselves. So if you're mean to yourself, if you're critical to yourself, if you're nasty to yourself, all of that, it comes out. And so I do think for me, that was a moment of realization with that phone call. And then, and then also just kind of growing into understanding I'm in a people business, right? I'm selling services. I'm helping people tell their stories.
Yes.
That's people business. And so, yeah, you will never be, I always say, like, the way you treat people comes out even in your services and products. So even if I had somebody who didn't care about my attitude and they just said, well, I just want to pay her to get this done.
Yeah.
It will still come out.
Yeah.
In the project. You know what I mean? So I think that, before I'm writing people's bios and they're helping them with their stories, like you, this is why I tell people all the time, if you go back to my podcast and listen to a few episodes, I talk about how this season 4 the theme was thriving in it all. And I had somebody on there talking about deliverance, like becoming free from spirits.
Yes.
I had a therapist on there today. I also had health and fitness on there. So this season, it was like, we're not going to just talk about business, because if you don't have your mental health, if you don't make sure that you ain't dealing with all crazy spirits, all of that, because some of you are carrying generational spirits, right? So I had different guests on to help my guests become whole in all areas, because business is not the ultimate goal. And part of that is understanding you need to honor people. So
absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. What's the hardest story you've ever had to write?
Write or listen to?
We got to go right, because I don't want, if we do listen to it, then we're gonna be messing with somebody's people skills. So we got to do.
I was thinking about an interview.
Oh, okay. Do tell.
Okay, so this was hard. Next week, the podcast episode that releases on my podcast is Lori Congner, which she was Conger, I'm sorry, was one of the survivors of the Cokeville bombing. And that was hard to hear a woman reflect on being 10 years old and a bomb going off in a school in Cokeville, Wyoming. That was hard. And I saw the movie the Saturday before I did the interview, The Cokeville Miracle. I had never even heard of it, didn't know it was a true story. And it's amazing to see what took place, in 1986. I was 2 years old. And all 156 people survived except for the bomber and his wife. And again, to hear this young lady, this woman, she's in her 40s now, recollect the feelings of being in that school and in the classroom, because they made all of them get in one classroom with both of her brothers, and wondering if they were all going to make it home alive to their parents. Let me tell you, tears to my eyes. I could not believe it. I think that was the hardest story I ever had to listen to and interview and create questions for, right? Because she's in her 40s, but she has to go back to being 10. Right. Opening up trauma again for my audience, right? Yeah. But then, just to oblige your writing, real quick, because I know, like you said, we're wrapping up. Sure, I think the hardest story I ever had to write was the one I did with Nico from Love and Hip Hop. That was hard.
Why? I would think that those are the easier ones, because they're already, up and running and telling their stories. Like, they're already open.
Because my name being attached to a book called Sex, Entertainment, and Live, from the guy who was known for a sex tape. But that's my brother. Shout out to Nico. I just want y'all to know these people are more than what you see on TV. Yeah. Put some respect on his name. He did songs with Rick Ross. He's like Teddy Riley. Okay. That's how I met Teddy Riley, through him. Teddy Riley wrote the foreword to his book. Okay, so we're not going to discredit Nico like he's some chump. Right. A great guy. But at the time, I was writing young adult. And that was the time I put out 3 books. My publisher put out 3 books with my name on it. And you got this young adult book next to Seal. And I'm like, I represent kids. Right. So that was hard. Listening to him talking about his addiction to, sex and, women and replaying the whole sex tape fiasco.
Scenes,
if you watched Love and Hip Hop, if you're familiar with him, that was pretty hard, because I also had to listen to a man share his pain. And I think sometimes as women, we don't realize that men carry pain. They have hearts too, ladies. So just even him sharing his father, seeing his father cheat, and that's what kind of led him to do it, and I think we really underestimate reality stars. And then hearing him just talk about growing up and trying to stay away from the drug life, the game, and growing up in Brooklyn. And so it was hard. It was really hard you're talking about a 200 and something page book. Okay. You're talking over 3 months of
hours
of sessions. And not only do I have to hear it once, I got to replay it to write it. And so that was really challenging to hear him with some of the things he went through as a young guy, being locked up in prison, in New York, and the things that he endured. So that was hard. That was so hard.
Wow. We're going to do the version of the rapid fire round, and then we'll close out. So I'm going to give you a word. You tell me what it means to you. Ready?
Sure.
When you hear the word authentic, what does that mean?
Maya.
Let's go.
Authentic, genuine. Same thing,
Okay.
really.
Yeah, yeah. When you hear the word success, what does that mean?
Hard work.
What does the word vision mean for Maya?
Tailored innovation.
I like that. I
Tailored
like that.
innovation.
Tailored innovation. I like that one. 5,000 people in a room. I've asked this question to a few of my guests before. 5,000 people in a room. You have 2 minutes to make sure that they leave with an impression. What's the impression that you want them to leave with?
The impression, or what would I say? What am I
The
doing?
impression. Let's go with the impression
Okay.
first.
The impression I want them to leave with is that, I would want them to leave with knowing that the hell that I've been through has earned me the heaven I'm walking in.
That's strong. What would you say to get that vision across?
You
You see why I went with what would you want them to leave
from?
I was like, please follow me through this one because it's going to be hard to go back.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So what did I say? The hell that I've been through is worth the heaven that I'm walking in.
Mm-hmm.
What would I say? It's still 2 minutes. I guess it's the elevator pitch. Oh, okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I would say I've been through the fire, I've been through the rain, the storms in the rain, and I've come out like pure gold. I think that's correlation to what I said. Yeah.
Yeah. Talk to me about the conference. Then we're going to talk about the podcast, and then we'll wrap up.
Yes, I'm excited. Girls Anthem was birthed in 2019, September 2019, and the first time it was just 20 girls, right? Chick-fil-A hooked us up. They sponsored it. Shout out to Chick-fil-A. And let me tell you, as an entrepreneur, you will have to ask. I walked right in Chick-fil-A, ordered my food, and asked the lady.
Are you serious?
I'm so serious.
That is you, though. That's you. That's very you.
I seen two ladies sitting and they had on gray sweaters and they had on Chick-fil-A. And I said, well, they don't work here. They must be in the corporate office.
Yes.
And I asked them and I introduced, they were actually, this is what I love real quick. They were actually coming over to see how people were doing. That's not even what they were there for. They are in the corporate office. And then I found out she was the community something. And I ended up asking her, and yeah, they sponsored, they gave us 50 lunch boxes.
Love it.
So, with that, I wanted to do something because I'm so tired of the kids in Philly dying. It is breaking my heart with the amount of murders, even the fire that killed all of those children. Anytime the POTUS, I think it was the FLOTUS that tweets about a fire in Philly that caught my attention because I hadn't heard about it yet. So whether it's accidental or murder, I really my heart bleeds. And so I decided to do co-ed this year, 16 to 22 Youth Anthem Conference, held at my alma mater, the best school, Temple University. And I wanted to make sure that the theme was important for them to for it to catch their attention. And the theme is, I am worth saving, right? Because I think it's something crazy, like a lot of young people today, this is not a stereotype, no judgment, because we were young. But y'all don't value life. Y'all don't value life. And I'm really disturbed by that. When I was growing up, we valued life. And I feel like there's so many young people just saying, I want to just either take my own life or take someone else's. And so I'm hosting 400 people. I'm excited about that. Tickets are $50. And what I really want young people to walk away with is that, one, your life is worth saving. We're going to give them tools and resources to be able to know how to walk out their faith, because it is a Christian conference, walk out their faith. And listen, you can represent the kingdom and the culture without compromising your values.
Yeah, okay? Absolutely.
So that's my biggest thing. Girls Anthem tagline is pursuing destiny without compromise. And so I want to make sure that they understand you can pursue destiny without compromising your values, or your story, because you don't have to be afraid to walk into the Hollywood boardroom to tell your story.
Absolutely.
Go in there with your dreads, You can go in there with your braids, whatever you want. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm excited to have Stellar Award-winning Grammy-nominated artist Dot Truth. That's a big deal. Dot Truth is like the Lecrae of our generation.
Got you.
Yeah. And then of course my girl Kiana Parks. She's a female rapper, Christian rapper, and I wanted her because she represents females really well. And I think the girls will really love her. And then I have some dynamic panelists. We just got Deputy Commissioner Robin Wimberly of the Philadelphia Police Department on board.
Very nice.
Commissioner Outlaw was not available, but because my mom works for the police department, I got the hookup. She's not a cop. I just
right. I was about to say you're gonna have some people delete the podcast.
Right. My mom is not a cop. She actually works in expungements. She would be your best friend.
She would be your best friend, like you want her. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I'm just so grateful God chose me to carry this vision, because it takes a lot to be chosen, and I didn't ask for this. So I'm grateful that he trusts me with his people, and I believe we'll do well. I literally booked the videographer, photographer, and DJ in 24 hours.
Love it.
I couldn't believe it. All of these men said yes, and they were so grateful to serve. And of course, we got to pay them, but but I'm just honored and grateful. Tickets actually go on sale March 17th. They'll go on sale next Thursday. And so if Chuck will allow it, I'll send him the link. I don't know if he wants to put it in the details.
Absolutely.
That's the most important thing to me. Like, before even selling my coaching, what I do for the kingdom is way more important, because like God said, you take care of my business, I'll take care of yours. So I ain't worried about that.
Yeah, that's huge. Talk to me about your podcast, because you've been helping the people.
Yeah. The Gold Files podcast is the #1 coach. Now listen, and you might not think it's #1, but I do. You got to sometimes speak it into existence.
Healthy competition. Competition.
But also, I just don't want people to think I'm like lying, like they looking for it to be #1 on Apple.
Right.
No. It's just me calling it that. But it's the #1 goal coaching podcast for women ready to walk in purpose. And the first 2 seasons were really about like laying a spiritual foundation. Then the 3rd season was focusing on goals. And then this season focuses on business, but like I said, thriving in it all. And so I'm really excited about that. But this is the last season, because the Maya K Show is coming back for season 2.
Let's go.
So I had 2 podcasts. The Maya K Show launched last in October of 2021. And then I did 8 episodes. And because I just remember I was praying, and God was like, you know why you're getting drained with business? Because you're not having fun anymore. And so the Maya K Show is really about Jesus, writing, and life, but it's a literary podcast. It's in the books category. And I think you guys will love it. So this podcast ends the Cokeville Miracle interview. I want everybody to listen to that next Friday. We have then 3 more episodes. Then it ends on April 8th. I take a week off, and the Maya K Show comes back April 22nd. And so that show is definitely good for anyone who wants to write a book, who is interested in anything literary. That's the podcast you want to listen to. And even coaching, I'll still talk about some coaching things over there.
Absolutely love it. As we wrap up, what is next for Maya K outside of the Maya K Show? When you look back at this, because we've been rocking 9-10 years now, right? No, 10. More than that.
No, 10. Well, it was 2012, so 10.
Okay, so 10. We look back 10 years from now, where will Maya K be? If the Lord says the same. We got to say it like that.
Right. Yeah, make sure it's. So I will have been married for 10 years.
Let's go.
With my kingdom spouse, doing great work for the kingdom. I could see us like with a podcast. I could see this because he already has a platform. I could see a podcast. We'll be changing lives in Hollywood. We're both assigned to Hollywood, so that's interesting. Changing lives through whichever medium the Lord chooses. Whether Grace's Daughters, my television show that is circulating, will have already been off because it will have 6 strong seasons.
Let's go.
10 years.
Let's go.
So it will already be off, which is cool. I don't think. Some people, no, like Law and Order SVU needs to go. It's over for them. Okay, they are draining me.
I am literally writing. You know what's funny? I am literally writing, because I do speaking and stuff as well. I am literally writing a message right now about Law and Order, because sometimes you can find that one thing and it's all you're going to ever need.
Right.
That woman has at that same check. And it is now syndicated. It is now spinoffs. She's an executive producer. That girl got one check and has never had to do nothing else.
And I love that part of it, but they're starting to run out of storylines.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So I only said that to say, like, I like how Shonda knows when to get in and get out. Scandal, 7 seasons, let's go.
Yes.
The only show that's been on long of hers is Grey's Anatomy. So I see Grace's Daughters maybe 6, 7 seasons, and then that's it. Yeah. And then lastly, in 10 years, my mother will have traveled to at least 20 different countries. I'm gonna make sure she gets the life that she was not able to have growing up. So
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm gonna speak syndication over that thing now. So you're
Amen.
gonna have your 6 or 7 seasons, but we also going to
right.
Netflix and Hulu after that.
Yes,
we're gonna get that Seinfeld money. You know what I mean?
That's right. And then we'll have a new show.
Yeah.
We'll have another show going on and on, just like Mara Brocker Kill. You know, she had Girlfriends, the Game. You just gotta know how to keep creating ideas. That's the only time you should want your show to end, when you know you got 2 or 3 more to go.
Yeah. I am so happy that you were able to join. You know, this is overdue, and we definitely should have done it, you know, way sooner. But I think the timing was right.
Yeah,
I think
the
timing was right.
Perfect.
Absolutely a pleasure to have you. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been rocking with the great one, Miss Maya K, and yours truly, Chuck Hawkins, here at the Hawk Vision Podcast. We've been talking about business, writing books, personal growth, and so much more. I hope this interview was informative. I hope we added a smile to your day, but more importantly, we hope we helped you shorten the learning curve on your journey to success. Make sure you buy your boy some coffee in the show notes. I am officially out. Like, share, subscribe, all of your platforms. Send in your messages, your guest suggestions. I cannot continue to grow the show without you, my visionaries. Remember, there's absolutely no miracle that ever happens without someone doing something. We'll see you either at the top or from the top. Maya, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Absolutely.